Hi, I'm Deneen, and by official title, I'm a fourth grade teacher. But as you know, if you're a teacher, that we are all teaching a variety of grades. I have students who are a couple grades below. I have students who are a couple or more grades above. And I'm just doing my best to teach to everybody's needs. And thank you for being here today. The question I have for you today is, do you like it when students know the answers immediately? Now, I know that there are times when we want our students to know the answers immediately, but for the most part, is that something you really like? When you're teaching a lesson, do you like them to get the answer right away? Because I'm finding the longer I teach, the less I feel that way. What I really like, what makes me happy, is when they struggle, when they're working together and things take a long time to figure out, because I feel like it's then that they're really learning and making connections. We're in fractions right now. You may be way ahead of me. You're probably on angles and triangles right now, but I'm in fractions. And we've been working with, if you saw last week's video, we've been working on things that are fractions that are equal to 1, less than 1, greater than 1. We've been working on numerators and denominators, the terminology, what these things mean. And it came to the point where it was time for me to go to equivalent fractions. And in the past, I have always gone straight to manipulatives for my equivalent fractions. These are the manipulatives that I love to use, and I have them always take them out and then start creating equivalent fractions on a piece of paper and making the comparisons. 1/2 is equal to 2/4 and things like that, and showing it and drawing it. But this year, I don't know, I got an idea to use money first. Now, I love manipulatives, as you know, and I bet you do too. These are the manipulatives that my students have at their desks at all times, like always. They each have a little medicine bottle of coins and their beaded number line and a calculator. This is what we just always have to have. And so I started to think, money is fractions, coins are fractions, and that's something that they're already familiar with, and more so this year as I've been teaching them with money so much. And I thought, we could use coins to teach equivalent fractions, and what would that look like? So that's what I decided to do for a whole lesson, and I had no idea how it would go because I'd never done it before, but I was excited to try. So I had them take out their coins, and I asked them to put this on their whiteboards. So everybody had 2 nickels and 1 dime on their whiteboard, and I asked them to create this exact thing on their whiteboards. And the denominators were left blank. And I said, at your table, I want you to see if you can figure out what the denominators should be. And they started working on it with their coins and with each other and talking. And there was a lot of conversation going on, a lot of beautiful vocabulary. I wish I had been walking around writing it down. I was walking around, but I forgot to write down the wonderful things they were saying, so I apologize. But pretty soon, they got this. And I thought, oh wow, they're really understanding what numerators are and denominators. That would be 1/10. But then, several of them got this. And I thought, I can see where this is going. They think this is a 1/10 because a dime is worth 10. And they think this is a 1/5 because a nickel is worth 5. Isn't that interesting? This is after several days of working with fractions and what numerators and denominators mean. So I walked around and I started saying, this is correct, even though their reasoning was not correct. The answer was correct. And isn't that, if it had just been a worksheet, this is really something to think about. If this had just been a worksheet, I would have looked at this and thought that they understood it when there was very little understanding. So that's one of the reasons I don't like teaching with worksheets. But I said, this one isn't correct. And so they were, what? What do you mean it's not correct? And I said, you're not there yet, is the way I said it. You're not there yet. Keep going. It took 10 minutes before somebody figured out what the answer was. And it wasn't a struggle period where students were upset, where they were crying. They were just messy and dirty and loud and working really hard. This is all good things. So then I was able to show them and teach them why this is a tenth, because it takes 10 of them to make a whole, and why this one is 20, because it takes 20 nickels to make a whole. And then I made them take their nickels and count out so that they could see that it is 20. Then I decided to go one step farther, and I hadn't planned to do this, but I just decided to do it, to teach them that diagonal method that we did a video on last year, which is a way to check for their check to see if their equivalent fractions are correct. 10 times 2 is 20, and 20 times 1 is 20. I didn't leave any room. Let me put it up here. Now, if you recall, if you were with me last year, if you were with us, I had a little student named Hannah who, the students loved this. They loved this. I mean, when I was in school, we always had to change it to common denominators. Not so necessary anymore. But she said, why? Do you remember that, Stanley? She kept saying, why does this work? Why does this work? And I kind of had my fingers crossed last week that no one would ask why, because I still can't understand the why this works. Wonderful Stanley made a video last year, and it's called Hannah's Question, and I've watched it multiple times. And I guess I should just keep watching it so I can fully understand. But we just know that it does work. Sorry, I know that's incorrect. I should have full understanding of it. But they love this, like, oh, can we try another one? So we did another one. I had them change their boards, and I put 2 quarters here. I don't know if you can see, that's 2 quarters and 5 dimes. And I thought, how soon are they going to get it this time? And they went to town struggling more with this. Struggle, struggle, struggle. But some of them got this one pretty quickly. They got this one pretty quickly. And then after about another 10 minutes, they were able to get this one. And I said, you know, this is so interesting. Let's take a look at this. And I explained why, you know, it's 2 quarters, fourths, because it requires 4 of these to make a whole dollar. And this one requires 10 because it takes 10 of these to make a whole dollar. I said, what do you notice about these numbers? You know, what do you notice? And what do you notice about this and this? And somebody said it's a half. And I said, do you notice that 2 is half of 4 and 5 is half of 10? And then we took out our calculators, and I said, now let's do the actual division and see what shows up. You know, I'm probably ashamed to admit this to you, but I was an adult before I understood that 0.5 means half. I memorized that 0.5 means half. I never knew what that meant. So, you know, it showed up as 0.5, 0.5, and I said, do you understand now why 0.5 is half? And we spent the entire period doing that. And, you know, I had planned to introduce this to get to the equivalent fractions of this, but what happened was we spent an entire math period just on this. And then the next day I started with a review of it. We did it again with the introduction of the fraction pieces. Another thing that was very eye-opening to me is as they were coming around with their fractions, and sometimes they would want to check with me, and I taught them, you know, to use the diagonal approach to double check to make sure they're correct. And one of my students came to me with 7/12 and 3/5. And he said, I think this is equal. Is this equal? I think it is. And I had him write it on his paper. So he wrote it on his paper, and we looked at it really closely. And I said, boy, these are really I'm probably getting too close to you. Really, really close. But there's a way, a mathematical way to check this to make sure if it's equivalent. So we did, 7/12 and 3/5. So he had this on his paper. I said, now we're going to do the diagonal method, and we're going to see if this is equal. 5 times 7 is 35. 12 times 3 is 36. And I said, look how close that is. That is so very close. Hence, it looks really close because it is really close, but they're not completely equivalent. And then my student took his pencil, turned it upside down, and started to erase his work. And I said, stop! Stop! What are you doing? He goes, well, it's not right. Somewhere along the line, we have taught our students that mistakes don't belong on their papers. Mistakes don't belong on their work. And this is after a year of having me as a teacher telling them mistakes are good, mistakes are part of our learning. And I said, look what I want you to do. Let's write an equal sign and let me teach you the symbol for it is not equal. And I taught him this, and he kind of stared at me for a little bit, and then he said, that's kind of cool. I said, yeah, that's kind of cool. And it all came from this beautiful mistake that you made. On day 2 of this lesson, Elin, do you have a symbol for needing to go to the bathroom? My students always do this. I didn't teach this to them. I think they learned it in kindergarten, and we've just gone with it. And she did this, but then she said, can you wait? Because I don't want to miss anything. I said, we will wait. So we waited. She goes, I'll hurry. And she ran to the bathroom and came back, and then we continued. That's probably one of the best gifts I've been given this year, was her saying those words. We have parent-teacher conferences this week, and so we've been on a minimum day schedule. And our lunch is normally at 11:40. But on these days, it's 11:20. And I don't care. I wrote it on the whiteboard, our schedule, but it is hard to keep up. And at 11:40, I was looking at the clock thinking, it's almost time, but we were having so much fun. We were just up to here in fun and hard work. The 6th graders came in. They like to get hot water from my room, from my hot pot. And I said, how are you in lunch when we're not even lunch? Because we'd go to lunch before them. And then it all lined up for me. And I said, oh, minimum day. And I said, boys and girls, I'm so sorry. You're 20 minutes late for lunch. I'm so sorry. And do you know what they said, including Mateo, including my really boys who are always hungry? Mateo said, it's okay. We were having fun. And they all agree, like, it's okay, no problem. 20 minutes late for lunch. They didn't care because they were having fun struggling and learning math. So I hope this week you will encourage your students to take their time, that they don't need to know things quickly always, and that their mistakes really are a source of learning. I'll see you next week.